What's up? I'm your host, Ricky Varandas. I got an awesome guest for you today. One of my best friends growing up, Renato Lindmets. He's also a professional basketball player. We talk about his story from being born in Estonia and then being raised in Springfield, Massachusetts, where the Basketball Hall of Fame is, which is where me and him met. I think probably I was still in high school. If not, it was soon after high school. And so we've been friends for a long time. We're both in our early 30s, early to mid 30s. So we've been friends for a long time. We met playing ball, and I've been friends since. And now he's traveled all over Europe, and he'll get into his story, how that happened, and what led him there, and all that stuff. And so we talk about everything from current events to his personal stories, our friendships, tons of just really interesting topics and conversations. And it's always fun to talk to an old friend, but also an old friend who's been living in Europe for a while. Most of his, I would say, the last 7 years or whatever it's been, he's been living in Europe. So it's fun to get his perspective and Europeans' perspectives on what's going on in the world, and just his experiences with traveling and meeting new people and different cultures and stuff. So really fun conversation. And if you guys want to see the video version of this episode, just like all my episodes, you can find it on YouTube. Just look up RV Theory 6, which is also my Twitter handle, or you can just search the Ripple Effect Podcast and you'll find our YouTube channel with all our episodes on there. And anytime somebody calls in using video, you'll visually see me and the guest talk. And in this case, it's Renato, and you can actually see us talk. And I'll be representing his jersey in the video from his Estonian team. So that's that. Also, remember to share this show if you like it. If you like what we're doing, I know we've been getting a lot of downloads recently, and probably some new listeners. So please review the show. Rate it on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to it. Like it, share it on whatever social media platform you're on, and or you can support the show on Patreon. But those are other ways that you can do it for basically at no cost. You can help just spread the word if you do like the show. Share it, tweet it, all that stuff. And like I said, the links are in the video notes. So if you go on our YouTube channel, in the show description, I'll have links to our Patreon page, my music project, Theory 6, which is another way you can contribute to the show. All that money goes to supporting the show and my music project. And I think that's it for now. I got a bunch of shows coming up, a bunch of great guests scheduled. I got a couple whistleblowers coming on later this week. So looking forward to doing that. And pretty well-known whistleblowers, so it'll be fun to share their stories. And I think that's it for now. So thanks again, guys. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, and enjoy our, I think, about 2-hour conversation about everything and anything. So enjoy, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
What's up, bro?
I'm guessing that's your girl's Skype.
Yeah, she's using her computer right now because mine is it's gonna die out. Something wrong with it. Gotta change the battery or something.
What's up? Thanks for being with me, man. What time is it there right now?
Right now it's 12:35, 12:40.
12. Holy shit! Wait, are you 5 hours or 6 hours ahead?
No, sorry, 11:45.
Oh, okay. So, am I keeping you up? Are you usually in bed at this time, or?
I was actually just eating. I was eating some chicken and totally forgot.
European style, eating late, right?
Always.
Well, actually, this is good that I have you on, because every once in a while I'll be at ball and people will be like, "Yo, have you talked to Nato lately? What he's been up to?" So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to be like, "Yo, I just did a podcast with him where he tells us what's going on and his whole journey, and then you can get the whole backstory." For listeners who don't know Renato from his last time he was on, that was probably like 2 years ago, and we had some technical difficulties, and we were drinking, doing like a 3-hour podcast. And the first hour, when we were somewhat sober and making sense, the computer lost it all. So then we started again when we're already annihilated. So all we have of that conversation is us being sloppy and probably making zero sense, slurring words. So I actually shouldn't...
all the brilliance was lost. And I felt like we said some real smart stuff in like the first 45 minutes. And then the alcohol kicked in.
Oh my God, I was so hard because actually I think I only picked up on it because you went to the bathroom, and I think when you went, you're like, "Yo, I need to take a bathroom break," and then I'm like, "Okay, let me go check on my computer," and then that's when I realized, like, holy shit, it stopped recording, And but yeah, that was a fun. Well, I figured, you know what, put it out there. It's funny because even shows like that, you think like, oh, nobody's gonna listen to them, or people actually do listen to them. People like silly shit like that, and they like. It's one of those reasons why I think podcasting had gotten popular. I think that's why Howard Stern was, got popular. Rogan's like anybody who's really honest and isn't afraid of being themselves, because it's like people are tired of like CNN, and it's like they're hearing like the typical questions and answers, and we're sounding very proper and intelligent, and behind the scenes nobody talks like that in real life. So I think people, it's nice for people. It's refreshing.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think a lot of people are getting really fed up with all that, especially in politics. As you can, obviously you definitely noticed in this past election, but I've seen it from a distance. But yeah, I mean, they all say this and say that, and you could tell it's so scripted and it's not real, and it's not believable anymore. They used to fool everybody, but now I feel like a lot of people are like, kind of thinking for themselves more and just, not believing all the bullshit. But
which I think
again, there's still few that are still all in the bubble. And
yeah, no, I think there's always going to be, because I think genetically we're still tribal creatures, and I think people join these tribes like anytime I talk to somebody and somebody's like, I'm a liberal, I'm a progressive, I'm conservative, and they put themselves in a group, I get a little worried, because I'm like, is this person really open-minded? Because anytime you pick a group, you're basically saying, I'm going to agree with that group 100% of the time, but that group is never right 100% of the time. So it's like you're not giving yourself the freedom to think things out and be free to look at all opinions and perspectives, and it boxes you in. Where that's why when people ask me, like, I'm like, I don't believe in political parties. I think it's ridiculous. This idea that I'm joining this political party because I think they're right on all issues is ridiculous. Like, I like the fact that I look at each issue and I pick which one, which side makes the most sense, which opinion makes the most sense, and I don't have a team that I have to root for. And you being an athlete and being a big sports fan, like we both were growing up, you see it all the time with sports, where people will be for Patriots or against Patriots. So people who are for the Patriots, New England Patriots, will say everything Brady does is gold and that he's never done any harm. And then anybody who's anti-Patriots will bash the Patriots no matter what. And it's similar with politics. It's the same type of thinking, where you join this tribe, you join this group, and then you only see things from that perspective. And it's such a dangerous way of thinking, because you're basically, you're not giving yourself the ability to look at other people's debates, their opinions, and maybe why they see things from that perspective, and you can always learn from that. So I think, I mean, you being in Estonia, what, like like you said, from the outside looking in, being in Europe, how did the election, how was it looking from your perspective from Estonia? What did people of Europe think of the election? Was it as chaotic as it looked here? Did they think it was silly? Do they not take it seriously? Do they think things are going to change? Like, obviously, sometimes when you're in the country and you're constantly, like you said, you're constantly being exposed to scripted propaganda all the time. From the outside, you can sometimes see things much clearer than from the inside.
Yeah, I think it's in Estonia, I think it was like a little bit of everything. Some people thought it was just stupid that, a guy like Trump was even running, and then, other people think, they're on, whoever's side, and, they got their little political agendas and stuff like that. But I don't know. In general, I think people thought it was just crazy. They think Americans are pretty crazy. They think like, they can't believe how, certain things exist, like Trump just saying this stupid stuff and saying that, and then Hillary's just blah blah blah. And I think a lot of people are kind of confused about it. And then me personally, I see it as like a show. It's like WrestleMania. It's pure entertainment, and this was like the biggest one ever. I remember thinking like when Obama and who was it? Obama and
McCain, yeah.
When they were going, and I was like, man, it's becoming pure entertainment. It's like, it's not even real. It's just like a show. I remember thinking that, but then, this one definitely topped them all. This was just.
You should have saw the commercials for the debates. They would show, CNN would make these, like, they look like UFC commercials where they would show like these politicians who aren't in shape, like Chris Christie, who's fat and whatever, and they'd show them in like this dark room with shadows on them, and they're like dun 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 dun, have all this aggressive music, and you would see their faces like it's happening Thursday at 9 o'clock, dun dun, and it's like you said, it was obvious that they were trying to hype it up. The ratings were awesome when Trump was on there, and everybody would tune in. He's like Mayweather or McGregor. Love him or hate him, you're going to tune in just to see what happens. And yeah, so it's interesting because it is chaotic. And I think when Trump won, I think a lot of people voted for Trump for the simple reason that they are sick of the theater, and they felt like the best chance of getting somebody in who wasn't a part of the establishment was somebody who funded it himself, somebody who the Democrats hated, and initially the Republicans hated too. And I think people didn't vote for Trump because they actually liked him. I think people voted for him because they hated everybody else, and they were just like, okay, this guy's fucking crazy, but a crazy option is better than the same option we've been getting over and over again. So I think that's why. What's that?
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, I think it's proven. Like I've talked about, James Corbett had a good video he came out with it soon after Trump got in office and started appointing people, called Trump Filling the Swamp. And he would talk about how, I'm draining the swamp with all the same people that Obama had there. And now he was filling it again with all the same people, all the Goldman Sachs people, all the bankers. And people get, I think just like when Obama won, people get, they hate the last establishment, the last president so much they really hope that the next guy's different. And I've been at the gym where people will be talking about something like, oh, don't worry, Trump will fix that. I'm like, no, he's not gonna fix shit. Like, they never do. And it's like, you get a Republican in power, and then Trump's gonna do a shitty job, and then people are gonna really be passionate about a Democrat because they hate the Republican. Then a Democrat's gonna be like, yeah, this guy's gonna be hope and change like Obama. Then somebody like Obama will get in office. Then 4 years go down and be like, oh, this guy didn't make a difference. Let's do a Republican again. And we'll just keep going back and forth while people like
everybody gets fooled. Meanwhile,
yeah,
like every single time, it's like. It's like the guy or girl that breaks your heart every single time. It's like, it's going to happen. We've seen it happen every single time. Nothing ever changes, yet somehow, as soon as the election comes around, everybody's ready to hope for the best and cheer for their guy or lady in the last case. And it's funny because everyone gets fooled. Every 4 years, it happens again and again, and it happens obviously in every country, almost every country now. But
it does, yeah.
America is such theater, and it just looks so. It looks so fake. I was thinking, I don't remember who I was talking to, but he was saying that like how, Russia back in the days, their propaganda system was crazy, but now like America is like. It's like light years ahead of Russia's propaganda, if you really think about it, and what they're doing there with the news and, everything. It's insane.
Well, I talk about how the U.S. is like a mild North Korea. Like we like to think that like we talk about North Korea in America, and we're like, oh my God, how crazy is that? Like that they're sending, like they have speakers in the streets where it's constantly saying something about how great their leader is. So it's just constantly selling propaganda. They constantly have anti-America videos and all this stuff, all this propaganda. But what they don't know or what they don't talk about is the similarities to America. Like the fact that, there's people who've worked for CNN who has talked about getting and Fox News and whoever, they're getting letters about how to spin a story, how, what they can and cannot say. And a lot of it's access. Like, hey, you think that you're going to bash every politician and give them hard questions and they're going to continue coming on your show? Of course not. They come on your show because there's a line that doesn't get crossed, and we agree that, hey, I'll keep coming on your show and giving you ratings, but you don't ask me the tough questions, and if you do, it's because you're setting them up in a way where I can knock it out of the park. And so it's all, and then you look at like Operation Mockingbird, which goes way back, and it's when the CIA infiltrated. They put people in all the big newspapers, all the big radio stations, and got people to basically put their guys in there to make sure that they had some control over what was being sold and what wasn't. Same thing with Hollywood. I mean, CIA gets infiltrated in Hollywood, and I mean, you think it's a coincidence during the Cold War and during all this time we had conflicts with with Russia and the Soviet Union, that every bad guy in an American movie was Russian? No, man. And just like now, every bad guy's Middle Eastern. It's like what you're doing is you're planting that seed, and you're slowly changing people's opinions and changing the perspectives. Because now when I see a Middle Eastern person, in the back of my head, subconsciously, I always think bad guy. And I dehumanize people from another country, which makes it easier for me to hate them. It makes it easier for me to be for the getting involved in a country or getting involved in a conflict. And you dehumanize. And the thing about somebody like yourself who's done as much traveling as you done, I think one thing, and I'll ask your opinion, but similar with me, having a lot of friends from different countries, leaving, I know I have some friends that never left the state, never mind the U.S., and like me leaving the U.S. and meeting other people, it's you realize that even though there's a lot of differences between us, maybe the way we look, maybe where we live, the food we eat, but we have much more similarities than we have differences. And from all your traveling, would you agree with that?
I would. Man, travel. You're bringing up travel. It's like, I think every human needs to travel at least somewhere. Go see a different culture, a different language, a different, street at least. It's
a different street.
I mean, when I think back of living in Springfield, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with over there playing basketball or whatnot, same neighborhoods. Some of those guys still haven't gone out. They haven't, maybe they went to Connecticut for some reason or something like that, but they haven't gone out and seen much or heard much. They only have their own little perspective of what they believe, what they think about the world and how things work. And it's good to stay in your hometown and all that, but, just to get some experience and perspective, I guess is the right word. It's great, especially for me. I've been to quite a few places, and I've lived in quite a few places, and experienced a lot of different cultures and stuff like that. And you learn so much from different cultures by living there and just eating different foods, learning their customs, how they act, how they interact, and you see the differences of people, like Portuguese people. Obviously, you're Portuguese, but when I was in Portugal, how when you go over to someone's house for dinner, and how the family there treats you, or how they interact with you, to like how when you go in Iceland to someone's house for dinner, and how their family interacts with you, to compare to Estonia or Eastern European country. It's so different, and it's fascinating, how we're all so different, but we're all the same pretty much, but we're also different in these little ways. But
yeah, I think some of the things that we have in common, like for example, no matter where you go, people want safe environment for their kids to grow up in. They want good schools, they want roads, they want to have places where we can come together as a group. So if it's in like a Middle Eastern country, it's hookah lounges where they can sit around and smoke and be social. If it's Australia, they want pubs where they can go and have a drink, and same thing with Europe. Or if we're social creatures, so I think we all love being around other people. That's why I think even with different types of foods and stuff like that, one thing we even though the food's different, one thing we all like is coming together around a dinner table, eating and drinking and enjoying each other's company. And I think that's a big part of us, like you said, growing, learning from one another. One of the reasons why the human species has actually evolved as fast as it has, and why we're the dominant species, is because of our social skills. They've done studies where they examine apes and monkeys and stuff and primates, and they look at them from birth to like 3 or 5 or whatever. And if you look at a human and you look at an ape, the primate's actually smarter initially, but one thing that we surpass from them is our social skills. So the baby will eventually establish social skills much quicker, and might not be as intelligent in other ways, but with social skills, it surpasses it. And you look at it, why is that? A lot of that is because of Darwin and evolution, us surviving. A lot of the things that happen to us, and a lot of our tendencies we have, like why women are good with colors, because for thousands of years they had to pick fruit and they had to pick stuff, so they needed to be really good at picking which fruit was right to eat, ripe to eat. Men are better with directions, even though some women are going to hear this and not agree with me, but men are better with directions. Why? Because we had to go kill something and find our way back. So these are generations and generations of thousands of years of learning these skills that's deep rooted in our DNA, and our social skills are the same. If I knew how to kill something, but yet you knew how to carve it or cook it, it was in our benefit for us to come together as a tribe and teach each other what we know and share our knowledge, because it would help me survive if me and you were on the same team. We're helping each other out, because I can't know everything, but I can gather people who know stuff I don't know, and we can all help each other. So it's in our DNA to be social creatures. It's like that example. I think Rogan's the one who said it once. It's you take somebody in a prison and they're surrounded by rapists, murderers, liars, the worst of worst people, and you punish them, a person, by putting them alone. So you take them away from all these really bad people and you put them alone, which you think would be paradise, but no, that person who's alone is actually punishment, and they go crazy. And because we have to be around people, so it's and I think a little bit has to do with the fact that if you're by yourself, you can convince yourself of anything. I use the Unabomber's example of, like, if I was in in the woods in a cabin by myself, I could convince myself I needed to blow this up, or I had to do this, or I had to do that, or I should dress like this, or I should not date that person, or it's like you need friends, you need family, you need to be around people, because if I'm dating a chick that's not good for me, I could convince myself, I can work it out. But and then if a buddy like yourself goes, hey, Rick, that chick's not any good for you, man, I don't trust her, no. All of a sudden you plant that seed of me re-examining what I'm doing and the way I'm thinking. So, and I think when you travel, it's good too, because it does make you re-examine the way you think. When you change your surroundings, we're creatures of habit, and I think when we change our surroundings, like I don't know what it's like when you travel, but do you feel like when you change your surroundings, when you get in this routine, right? You train, you play ball, you eat at the same place, you whatever, but then when you travel, because you're seeing different shit, because you're talking to different people, all of a sudden you see things from different perspectives, and all of a sudden you're getting different ideas, and does that happen?
Yeah. For sure. I mean, you're always learning, little things. I'll give you an example. Like when I first started out in Portugal, as you know, I started playing there, and my friends there, all my teammates, they already were really good cooks, and I was like really surprised by that. Now, and what my few years there when I played, I learned little things here and there, and all of a sudden I'm a pretty decent cook now. That was just from going to play in Portugal and just watching my friend teammates cook, and I'm like, wow, you're really cooking that stuff, and I'm like, how you do this and how you do that and how'd you make that sauce, and it's just little things like that. You just start picking up, and just, I mean, that's a random example, but and obviously with training and stuff, how these guys train and how they train and how they prepare and how these guys prepare. You pick up little things there, here and there, and then you put it all together, and all of a sudden you're old, and you got all this knowledge, and all of a sudden your legs don't move anymore, and you can't even use it.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that's kind of my metaphor for life. I feel like life's a giant puzzle of like millions of pieces, and every piece of knowledge we can gather is like one more piece to the puzzle that we're putting down. And then as we gather more pieces, like the image starts becoming clearer, and the image is a metaphor for like what really makes us happy and what we really want in life. And I think last time we talked on the phone, we talked about this, about how the nice thing about getting old, some people might look at it, and I've had people on both sides of the coin where people will talk about, it sucks getting old. People our age who are now like, they're not in their 20s, they're in their 30s, and they're, they're getting tired more, and they don't have the energy, or they're maybe, don't look the same way, gain some weight or whatever, and they'll talk about how it sucks getting old, and I'm like, I don't know if it does suck, because I like the 32-year-old me more than I like the 22-year-old me, and I think the 32-year-old me knows what I want in life more, and knows the things that truly make me happy and aren't temporary happinesses, and I know who I am better. Where when I was 22, I might have been trying to fit in more. I was trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted. And so I think there is that wisdom that as you get older, you kind of gather. I think that it's not celebrated anymore. It's not, you look at, like, we celebrate young dudes, you know, NBA players who have mad money and Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and they're banging tons of, you know, other teammates' wives and stuff like that, which you hear all the time. And we think like that, oh, they're happy. That's their, like, they're living it up. And then anybody who knows them personally, you find out that, like, holy shit, they're not happy. They're actually buying this shit because they think it'll make them happy, and then they have to keep buying this shit because they are looking for happiness in the wrong places, and that's how they end up being broke. Because, oh, it's like, well, he has a Ferrari, well, I got to get one too. And it's like, oh, people like me better if I buy a Ferrari. Oh, then let me buy another one. Oh, people like me better if I have all this bling on me and it looks like I have money. More people want to hang out with me. So it's like this. It's like you're making up for a lack of self-esteem. You're making up for a lack of confidence, for a lack of knowing you. And I think that as you get older, you figure that stuff out much better. And, you know, we talked about how we're both super big sports fans. And, you know, Celtics have a game up tonight, game 5, huge game, you know, whatever, this and that. But, you know, we're talking about how neither of us watch Sports Center. Neither of us listen to sports radio. Neither of us, like, it's just not that important anymore. You realize the discussions I want to have with my friends are deeper and better than just talking about sports. We're talking about life. We're talking about personal experiences, about personal philosophies, and that's a much more enjoyable conversation than the 2-hour debate we'll have about who's going to win tonight's game, and then it doesn't change the outcome anyways, and whoever wins is going to end up winning, you know. So
it's true. I mean, you know, it's funny how you just lose interest or just lose love for certain things that you thought you had, or, you know, just, I'll give you an example about how, you know, obviously me and you, when we were younger, we were going out all the time, drinking, having fun. And now it's like, I care less about doing all that, you know. Every now and then, once you get a really good group, then it's kind of enjoyable to, you know, go hang out or whatnot. But for the most part, it's like, man, you know, have a couple of drinks and just pass out, you know. I don't want to go out anymore. And it's the same thing with sports. Like, I used to care so much about who won, who did this, and who scored that. And now it's like, oh, okay, that's good. Well, too bad they lost. All right, whatever.
Well, you know what's funny is that, like, you know, I was talking to my brother today, and it's like, I was talking about that, you know, because he talks about how we were talking about, and he's like, oh, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm not that interested in talking about sports, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus or anything. But he still does, you know, and we could go out to a bar with a bunch of friends, and he could spend the whole night talking about sports in general, like, you know, who they should draft, who they shouldn't draft, trade rumors, you know. And our buddy Tricks, same way. He could, you know, they talk about trade rumors, this and that. I'm like, who cares? I'm like, once a trade deadline happens, you're gonna know who got traded. Why? And I guess it's fun. It's to the point where if you understand it's only entertainment, if you understand that it's meaningless, if you understand that there's no point and it doesn't change anything who wins or loses, and you use it just for something to do because you're bored, or you use it for a getaway from you know, adult responsibilities or priorities or stresses that you might have in life, then I get it. But I don't see a lot of people doing that. I think a lot of people, when you call them out on it, will say, oh, yeah, no, I get it. It's just, you know, I understand it's just entertainment. It's just like, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then 2 seconds later, they're getting in a heated argument about something. And it's like, wait, if you know it's meaningless, why are you getting so worked up because this guy thinks he should, you know, a player should be traded, and you think that's ridiculous? It's like, it just isn't that. For example, when Isaiah Thomas, his sister passed away, you know, I don't know if you heard about that, right before the first game, the day before the first game against Chicago, and they played really bad those first 2 games. And I talked to some people, and they're like, you know, why did the Celtics play so bad, you know, this and that. They're like, you know, I understand his sister passed away, but damn, man, like, the whole team played bad, and no. I'm like, you got to understand, dude, like, basketball seems really important until your sister at 22 passes away. Then guess what? They don't fucking give a fuck, man. They realize, like, life's too short, and I'm stressing about this game, which isn't that important. I'm like, as a coach, how do you motivate a team? Because they all go to the wake, they all go to the funeral, and every single player who's there gets a reminder that you're not immortal. You are gonna die one day, and you better re-examine your purpose here and your time spent. And when you have all those thoughts, I tell people all the time, the only good thing that comes out of funerals is the fact that we get something that we get to ignore and deny and kind of just try to pretend it's not there, and that's the conversation about death. And you can't ignore it that day. You know, when you're at a funeral, it reminds you, like, holy, yeah, you wake up every day, you eat the same breakfast, you go to the same gym, you go to the same job, and you think that that's guaranteed every day. We're creatures of habit, we do it, and then this funeral happens, and that person thought the next day was guaranteed too, and it's like, holy shit, if it happened to them, it could happen to me. So I think my point is that I think for those players, one of the reasons why they played so bad was because I think, like you and myself, if we were in that same situation, I wouldn't be thinking about strategy. I wouldn't be thinking about my game. I'd be thinking about what am I doing in my life and how important, you know, spending time with your loved ones are and your friends and family and doing the things you enjoy. And it makes you re-examine things. But there's still sports fans who completely were like, what the fuck? They played like shit. And I'm just like, dude, he just lost his sister. Don't you think that's a little, like, give him a pass? Jesus Christ. Like, you know, give him a pass. It's to act like you could poo-poo it. Like, no, you know, big deal. You lost your sister. Now go out there and hit some threes. It's like, no, man, it's not that simple. It's like you get hit with one of the biggest truth bombs, one of the biggest reality bombs that, hey, you're going to die one day, dude. And we don't talk about it, and we don't, you know, and that's a part of American culture where we kind of ignore it, and we don't ever examine it. We don't analyze it. We don't think about, like, hey, you know, let's talk about this, because this reminder of talking about it will help me every day try to live the day to the fullest and be a little nicer than I probably am at times, and all these things. But people just ignore it. And so I think that was another example of I'm sure that Isaiah and a lot of the teammates felt the same way. Like, basketball right now isn't that important, and as you get older, it becomes even probably less important. And, you know, before we get way off topic, because I think like usual, I'm always way off topic. Well, we'll come back to this, but I definitely, for people who aren't familiar with your journey, like, okay, so we met because you grew up in Springfield. We played ball together. We ended up becoming real good friends. You know, I had a lot of good times hanging out, drinking, and partying, and I think in a lot of cases we grew up together in the manner of not just an age, but I think as a people we grew up together. We grew at, you know, our personalities developed. You know, we really went through that crucial stage of your life where you go from like a kid to becoming an adult. And but so for people who aren't familiar with your journey, you started in Springfield. You end up. When did you decide that you wanted to chase basketball as a career and it wasn't a hobby? Is there a moment in your life where you knew, like, okay, I'm going to give this thing a true attempt?
Yeah. I was working at a Honda factory.
That will do it.
I was working at a Honda factory, and I don't know how old I was. I must have been 19 or something, 20, I don't know. And
so it was after high school. It was after you graduated.
This is after high school, and it was in the summer. It was blazing hot, I remember, and we were almost. It was almost. I think we got out at like 4, and it must have been like 2 or 3, and there was like a newspaper somebody left, and I had like a little time to spare, and I just picked it up and looked at it, and it was a sports page, and I seen my buddy there. And he was there. There was a little article about him going pro, and he was working on it, and whatever. And I was just sitting there like, wow, damn, he's trying to go pro, and I'm over here sweating my butt off at this Honda factory, man. Like, what am I doing? I should be doing something like that, you know, trying to go. I remember having that thought in my head, and then actually, I was probably a little older. I think I was like 21 or 22 because I was playing in the Pro-Am at the time. And then I kept playing. I played in the Pro-Am that summer, and I think the summer after, that's when I went to Portugal. So I must have been actually like, I think I started when I was 23 in Portugal. So I must have been 22.
Was that the Hartford Pro-Am, the one that you won MVP of the finals on the losing team?
Yeah.
That for people who weren't, I went to those games. For people who weren't there, he dominated so much that, and it's funny because I remember him being super pissed because he knew that if they won that game, it was best out of 3. If he won that game, that he would have won MVP. And then they lost the game. He fouled out and late in the game, and then the team struggled to score without you, basically, because you were such a big part of the scoring. And then I remember after you lost him, I think I even joked around and said, "Yeah, but how crazy would it be if you won on the losing squad?" And I think we just kind of laughed it off. And then you actually won, and that's how much, which you never see ever. So that was wild, the fact that you actually won on the losing squad, even though you dominated so much. But was that pro-am a part of that? Like, holy shit, I can play with these guys, and
Yeah, I definitely that was definitely the beginning of getting my confidence and playing against other pros, because there's obviously other pros that play, and I started playing against them, started getting confidence, and I was like, man, I could play against this guy, I could play against that guy, and I started really thinking like, man, maybe I could do something, and then I went to a couple camps, and an agent got me a job in Portugal. That was the first place I started, and I was like, well, gotta start somewhere. So I went there and started from there, and then that opened doors for other places, and still playing today.
And you end up in Estonia because you end up trying out for the national team, right? And then
that was actually there was an embassy opening somewhere in Portugal, an Estonian embassy, and they had contacted me. And they asked me if I could come to their opening ceremony, me being Estonian playing professional basketball there. And I actually had a game that day, and I said I couldn't. But, if you guys could contact someone in the Estonian Basketball Association and, let them know that I'm playing here, maybe I could come play for the national team and stuff like that. And sure enough, someone contacted me back, and they brought me over to the national team. And then I came to Estonia, and then I went back to Portugal a little later on for one more round. And I went to Iceland as well a couple times, and then been here for I think the last 5 years now.
Yeah. And what was the difference in styles, the difference in coaching? Like, what do you think? Because I mean, you went from the most Western European country, Portugal, to now one of the most Eastern European countries, Estonia. Like, what's the difference? What's the biggest differences with everything, with style, with coaching, with basketball in general? Even though we're all they're all playing the same sport, they're putting the ball in the hoop, but at the end of the day, the philosophies, I'm sure, are very different.
I think Portugal is, I would say, a little less physical in general, or it seemed to me. They were more skilled guys,
finesse type players,
more finesse type. I definitely noticed that right away when I got to Estonia. I was like, wow, these guys are pretty physical. And I was always a pretty physical guy, but when I got here, I was like, man, I got to get a little stronger because these guys are a little next level. But yeah, I would say that would be the biggest difference. Well, Estonia is a little bit more physical. Portugal was definitely more finesse.
It's probably
and Iceland just run and gun.
Really?
Yeah, Iceland's just run and gun, man. If you're a guard and you can run, shoot, and you're perfect for over there.
I bet you a lot of it has to do with the people, because you look at Estonia and a lot of Eastern Europe, big guys have to deal with winters, so you make tougher human beings. You make they're a little tougher. Where in Portugal, it's they're hanging out at the coffee shop all day, then they go to the beach. It's you're probably not going to be quite as tough as a Eastern European who has to deal with winters and have to deal with tough climates and stuff like that, and countries that maybe are struggling a little more and stuff. So it's funny how sometimes the countries that struggle the most, the best athletes come out of those places. You look at Mexican boxers, you look at now Russian boxers, you look at way back in the day, a lot of when Jewish people were coming to America, they had a lot of Jewish basketball players and boxers, because when you don't have any options, when you live in a poor area and you're like, how the fuck am I going to get out of here? And you don't have any skills, sometimes picking up a basketball or picking some boxing gloves up and say, hey, I'll just go to a local gym and see if I can get better at this. Sometimes it's your only way out. So I think it does give people kind of a way out of and even in Springfield and everybody knows some of the best NBA players were raised in some of the poorest areas in the U.S. and they came from nothing and they felt like this was my only way out of this. So I think when you feel like it's your last resort, you put a little more into it. Where if somebody else is like, hey, I got options, I'll go do this. I'll go do that. I don't have to go chase basketball. Do you think that was one of your motivations, was because you were at a factory, you were working a job you hate? And I remember telling you that when you're in Europe, I'm like, I don't know how Renato is handling it, but if Nato ever needs any motivation, I'm like, he needs to remember that the rest of us are working, 9 to 5 or whatever, 7 to 3, whatever you want to call it, full-time jobs that they hate. And it's one of those things where most of us wish that we were playing basketball for a living. Like I always say, I know plenty of people who make good money who would take much less money or half their pay to do a job they like compared to doing a job they hate. You hear it all the time. Somebody gets promoted and they make more money, but now it's more stress. So now it's like, well, what the fuck, man? I wish I kept my other position because I was happier, because even though I was making less money, I had less stress, more free time to myself. So more money doesn't always mean you're happier, and it doesn't mean you're always better off. So I think in general, most people who aren't completely insane like Donald Trump or Warren Buffett, who just are obsessed with making maximum money, I think most people would say, hey, you know what, I'll take less money to do something I enjoy. But even something, and I guess this goes into another conversation, because even something you would enjoy, and this is what I try to tell people all the time, like the nice thing I like about this podcast is that it's still a hobby. I don't do ads, I don't do sponsorships, I don't do any of that stuff, because I feel like the more I do that, or if I start going down that road, it would turn into work. And like anything you love, eventually it will turn into work. And did you get to the point where basketball turned into, it wasn't like fun anymore, and it turned into work, and then you had to actually find ways to continuously motivate yourself to want to get better and do things? Or did you always have that burning fire?
No, you get it sometimes. My first year, I think around March, I was like, damn, man, I'm sick of basketball. It's like, morning practice, night practice, morning practice, night practice, week after week, month after month. And I remember and that was the first time I had so many games, and the season being so long. And I remember thinking like, man, I'm sick of this. Like, I'm tired of basketball. Like, I'm really tired of it. But then, you just get over that hump and it goes away, and then you're back at it. But, I think it also has a big effect, on your season. How's it going? How are your teammates? How is your coach? Are you guys winning? Are you playing well? Are you injured? Are you really healthy? All those little things. If you're constantly getting injured and you're on a losing team, the coach doesn't like you, maybe the team's thinking about firing you, maybe you're not having such a good time. But with all those set aside, I think people do, fall in and out of love with the game of basketball. As for me, I've been playing for a long time now. I've been playing for about 9 years now, and you have your times where like, oh man, I'm sick of it, and then obviously after every summer, you're always like ready to get back into shape, and you're ready to train and everything. But there's certain points in certain seasons that you get tired. Your body just gets tired. You're always sore. You're always hurt. Like people like they don't realize, like NBA players or professional athletes, you're always hurt. Like, you're never 100% healthy. There's always something going on. It doesn't, always. The only time you're not hurt is when it's summertime. You haven't been practicing. You're sitting on the beach, sipping on a beer. Then you probably feel good. But during the season, you're constantly hurt. You're not, you might not be injured, but you're hurt. Your knee is probably swollen. Your ankle's not right. Your elbow hurts. Your shoulder's messed up. Your back is tight. And you're constantly, doing rehab, doing all this work just to keep your body going and being able to get through practice and then being able to perform in games. So you have your times where you're just like, oh man, I'm tired. And mentally, obviously, it's really hard to just, always just, all right, I got to get up. I got to do this stretching after practice. I got to make sure I do the ice, and then I got to stretch again. And you got to make sure you're eating right. You're taking all your vitamins. And then, obviously, when you're younger, you got to stay away from the party and the drinking as much as possible, because, that's also going to hurt your body. But as you get older, then, that's not really a problem anymore, for me, at least. But
yeah, I think that's probably very tempting when you're traveling all over the world. I'm sure you have a day off or whatever. How many of these players actually go out and still perform well? I mean, does it happen? Or do you see guys go out, party, and then still show up the next day and then still perform?
Yeah, and they do, and then there's some that can't do it. But when I was younger, I would go out. party, and bounce right back, sweat it out, morning practice, and be good. But as you get older, obviously you can't do it anymore. The joints, tighten up, your muscles get tight, and it's kind of hard. But I remember, in the beginning, it was like we practiced so hard, let's say 2 weeks straight, and then all of a sudden we had the weekend off, we didn't have a game, and it's like, man, let's drink, let's party. It's like you're like really thirsty for it because you had just worked so hard, and now you want to, kind of, just hang out with your buddies.
Yeah, reward yourself for all the hard work you're putting in. Yeah,
exactly. Reward yourself, because you just worked so, you kicked your body's butt, and it's actually the wrong thing to do because now you're not rewarding your body, you're hurting your body. But
that's a good point. Yeah.
But when you're young, you can get away with it. As you get older, you gotta moderate it and be smart with it.
So when you're playing for these teams, who handles? So you cook for yourself, you make all your own food, and is there any of these teams? What's that?
It depends on your contract. If you have a contract where you have a free living, you got your free apartment, you got 3 meals a day. It could be in your contract. You eat at this restaurant and for breakfast, you eat at that place for lunch, and this place, whatever, for dinner. It all depends, I had, last time I had a meal, I think it was maybe, 3 seasons ago. I think I had all 3 meals in my contract.
Nice.
But yeah, so it all depends on your contract.
And do they try to monitor what you're eating, like keep track, make sure you're eating like healthy food, or do they not give a shit really?
No, obviously if you play in some, really top clubs, I'm sure they do, but not for me, no.
Okay. And any of these teams, because obviously in America, they're always trying to find like an edge for players and stuff. So they have nutritionists and all this stuff. I mean, is that something in Europe that has picked up?
Yeah. It also depends on the team, depends on the staff, the coach, and what they're all about. But like recently we always had aminos in our locker room, aminos and BCAAs. We had 2 giant bottles of those, and everybody always took those. And then we had these little isotonic drinks that we always drank before games, and they were always ready for us, and some other type of vitamins we always had. But as far as like protein or creatine, we didn't have that.
Is there a stuff that's banned from any of the leagues you played in? That is there, like, in other words, do they emphasize like, hey, here's a ban list, don't take some of these supplements?
Yeah, Estonia and FIBA, and there's definitely a ban list, and I have it in my email somewhere.
Of all the stuff, really?
Yeah, it's like all the different, not the actual product, but the
ingredients.
The ingredients that are banned from.
Well, the thing is, it's funny because there's UFC fighters who've been banned for certain ingredients, and they'll be like, no, man, I didn't take anything. The only thing I took was this. So what they'll do is that USADA will go to a store, buy all that product off a shelf, and then they'll test it. And even though on the ingredients it doesn't say it's there, when they tested it, it comes up, and it comes up because a lot of these facilities, they use them to make multiple products. So then you'll get residue from one product to another. So yeah, so sometimes
I heard about that. So I try to be very very simple. What I take some protein, I take some creatine, and a multivitamin. That's about the extent of what I take.
You don't take any amino acids on your own?
We did. Well, we took the aminos, yeah, the aminos and the BCAAs, but now I got a protein that has the BCAAs in it.
Yeah, well, they usually do because it helps with the breakdown and the digestive and
I was literally at the supplement store today, and I got a one with the BCAAs in it, and I don't have aminos right now, but I'll probably get one of those too.
Yeah, because
I personally really like the amino. I like the powder, and I just mix it with some water and down it, and I definitely feel charged up after I take that.
Yeah, well, it helps for recovery. I mean, it's huge for recovery. I mean, to be honest, for a long time, I didn't touch them, and then, I would go use them, not use them, and then I just realized that every time I was consistently on them, I'd get sore. You know, my soreness wouldn't happen, or if I did, it'd be for less time, and it just you felt better. So I mean, it really is useful. But that's one of those things where a lot of people are into nitric oxide and things that give you a quick feeling, and aminos are, you know, is one of those things where you don't really get a jolt of energy, like something that's really noticeable. It's not like all of a sudden you have all this energy where I'm going to go bench press, you know, twice as much as I usually do. So a lot of times people are just like, oh, it's a waste of money. But now I think they're getting much more popular with athletes and stuff like that. People are kind of getting away from a lot of these really expensive products because amino acids aren't that expensive. So it's like, why not buy them? You know, are supplements expensive in Europe? Are they more expensive than America?
Everything is expensive in Europe, but definitely the supplement. Like today, I don't know, I spent like almost 200 euros, and
which is,
I
mean, that's like what
I got. I don't know. I got a big thing of protein. I got some glucosamine stuff.
For your joints.
Yeah, I got like this powder. Tried some different stuff. Couple other a multivitamin, a couple other things. It was like almost 200 euros altogether. So it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it sounds it. Yeah, it's funny how in America they've gotten it's almost like it was more popular in America first because of the 90s, the bodybuilding thing blew up where like Europeans were still small, they weren't really into like, they're like, oh, lifting weights is stupid. And then now it seems like it's kind of all over the world. It seems like lifting weights has become much more popular because you would hear stories about back in the day, people didn't lift weights. They, you know, they would do cardio. They might do this, they might do that, but they didn't really lift weights. They didn't. Where in America they emphasize lifting weights much more with their athletes. Do you see that? Like, is there a difference between America and Europe with exercise? Like, different types of exercise. In Europe, do they emphasize lifting weights as much as they do in America?
Yeah, definitely in Eastern Europe. Like when I played in Portugal, it wasn't like, you know, I lifted here and there, but I wasn't really big on it. But here in Estonia, it's definitely emphasized, and you know, a lot of the exercise. The main three that's really emphasized here in Estonian basketball is the bench press, the squat, and then the clean. Is it called the clean and jerk?
Yeah.
It's that is like huge here, and it really does help. It helps with your shooting for some reason. Doing this with the weight, picking it up, going, you know, starting from all the way down and flipping it up, and then if you want to put it over your head, you can. But those three are like very popular here in Estonia.
Well, you figure those exercises, especially like deadlifts and squats and stuff like that. Anytime you're using you know, a lot of muscles and you're trying to, those type of movements are much more natural compared to, you know, you do like leg extensions. Like, when are you ever going to use a leg extension? Like, so I'm really strong at sitting down and extending my leg, but it's not simulating what I'm doing on the court or what I'm doing. And that's like the big thing is like, you need to simulate what you're doing on the court. And that's why kettlebells have gotten so popular. Kettlebells, those type of exercising, because you're doing, they call it functional strength. Like you're getting, it's helping with balance. It's helping with not just that, because when you do like old school exercising, you know, it's a lot of like isolation. You isolate one muscle group. So if I do curls, my whole body still except my arm or my bicep, not even my arm, just my bicep, and my biceps just you know, coming, you know, moving and just lifting this weight and putting it down. And the purpose is because it's much easier just to get my arms big when I'm just focusing on one muscle group. But it doesn't help with functional strength. It's not going to help me when it's time to pick something up that's really heavy. It's not going to, you know, it might help a little bit, but it's not going to help as much as when I'm doing these kettlebells where I'm lifting them over my head and using my legs and using, you know, all this stuff. So, and you see a lot more people exercising without shoes. You know, that's another thing because of foot strength. Like, that's something you don't think about is foot fatigue. But almost every type of athlete, you know, boxer, MMA, basketball, football, like your feet are almost everything because it's the only thing that's touching the ground on your body. But yet we never think about foot fatigue. You know, you hear stories about people in like Fiji and they have like the strongest feet ever, and so they have no issues with hips and back pain. Like, they have like zero because they don't have these shoes which force your feet to walk unnatural, you know, because when you have padding on the heel, you know, you want to walk heel first, where for thousands of years, you know, if me and you were running to try to catch something to eat, we wouldn't run heel first because that would hurt. You know, if I landed on a rock, that'd be bone against rock, where now we can run heel first because it doesn't hurt. We have this padding. So it's forced us to walk. Didn't force us, but it's kind of this new technology has kind of screwed up the way we should be running, the way our body's been designed. That's why you see that saying about athletes like, oh, he's always on his toes. What does that really mean? That means that they're on the ball of it. He's on the ball of his feet, because that's the way you should be standing, because that's the way you spring faster. You're faster when you're on the ball of your feet. That's the way our body's been designed, where you aren't supposed to run the heel first. And when you start doing little things like that fuck up the mechanics and fuck up the balance of your body, you end up walking weird or walking a little different. So now your hips aren't aligned, and then your hips not being aligned causes knee pain or causes back pain, and then it screws up all this stuff. I think there's a book called Born to Run. I could be wrong, but I think it's called Born to Run, and it's all about the history of like the Nike shoe and how the sneaker fucked up the way we walked, and it probably was I guess the person to blame, or the product to blame for a lot of this eventual knee pain and joint pain and all this stuff. And so there's a lot of conflicting opinions, but it kind of makes sense, because if you look at it, if you're doing squats or you're doing deadlifts or anything where you have a lot of weight on your feet, if you're not wearing a shoe, you can, all those ligaments and tendons are kind of holding you there, and you can feel the ground. And if you are wearing a shoe, then you can easily start kind of like getting your foot diagonal and leaning to one side. If your shoe kind of wore out differently, now you're kind of putting your foot in an awkward situation, and can kind of put strain and hurt yourself. So there's a lot to that. I think Conor McGregor was a guy who, he was training with a movement, I think they called it like a movement coach, and he would do everything barefooted. And you don't think about it, but when you're throwing punches and you're in the ring, yeah, your calves might be have good endurance, or your quads, all this stuff, but your feet also get fatigued, and all that bouncing around and moving, you don't think about it. But like, if my feet get fatigued, what does that happen? You think it's because your calves are fatigued, because once you're you've had injuries, once one thing is weak or hurt, you try to make up for it with something else. So now if my feet are fatigued, now maybe I'm putting more strain on my calf muscle, so now my calves are getting sore and getting fatigued, and I'm like, oh, this is because I need to work on my calves harder. But it might be because my feet are weak, so there's my buddy, Dave Kornacki, a good friend of mine, he co-hosts this show sometimes, and his daughter lived in Hawaii for some years, and he would talk about how he would go to Hawaii, and they'd go for hikes and walks and stuff like that, and she'd go like barefooted, and she's walking on all these rocks and all this stuff, and he's like, dude, my feet would hurt. He's like, I would get tired, I would get fatigued, all this stuff, and it was all because they're always barefooted there. So there's all this foot strength that you don't even think about, So I wonder how much of like us trying to make up for it, because our body's designed to be strained. Like, we strain it, like when you work out, you strain it, and then it recovers and gets stronger because of it. I remember when I was doing mixed martial arts, one thing we would talk a lot about is like, you get kicked a lot, you do all these exercises, and when you get kicked and in the leg, sometimes you get like these hairline fractures, and bone, when it heals, it gets stronger. So guys who do MMA for years and years and years can get kicked much harder in the leg than maybe someone like you and me, who we haven't had those hairline fractures that make it heal quicker. So your body wants to be strained. So sometimes when you put shoes that prevent your feet from being strained, it could be doing some harm.
Yeah. So I don't, like, I had a little bit of a problem with my feet too in the last couple of years. I always thought it was certain shoes, and after practice, my feet just felt like they were on fire, and they were just tired, and they hurt from the bottom to certain points, like right around the ankle area, and then the heel as well. And I wasn't sure if it was my heel or my Achilles, and you get little things like that, and sometimes it depends on the shoes you're wearing. I remember I got a different pair of shoes and still kind of felt weird, and then I got a different pair again, and then it felt all right. But yeah, your feet are super important, especially in basketball. I think with my ankle was, that was a huge problem, because I had like a high ankle fracture. This is many years ago, but that took like almost 2 years to like fully heal.
Damn.
And it was real bad. A high ankle fracture is much worse than a normal ankle fracture or ankle
Sprain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have a high ankle, that's really bad. But yeah, your feet, I mean, definitely very important. I've broken my bone on my foot on the Jones fracture is what they call it. It's like the outermost bone on the side of your foot. And I broke that way back in college. And it took a little while to heal. It's actually hard to heal. Most of those injuries don't heal because it's such a small little bone, and it's in a tough spot, and you have to put weight on it, and usually you have to go get surgery. But I just drank a bunch of milk, and I was good.
Have you tried that Wim Hof method, that breathing technique?
I did. I tried it. I tried it in my playoffs right after you told me about it, or we talked about it. And I tried it a few times. I remember I tried it in my room at first, and I was like, oh yeah, I feel a little bit, better in general, and just felt more alive, I guess. And then I tried it before games and before practices, and I felt like it helped a little bit. So
yeah,
I like. Yeah.
As you do more of it, for people who aren't familiar with this, I've talked about it on the show before, but it's Wim Hof is a guy who has like 39 world records. He's been on a bunch of different shows and podcasts, and Vice did a special on him. And he basically has this breathing technique and what he believes can tap into the human potential that we're not tapping into. And most of us, or a lot of us, work jobs where we have very shallow breathing. We're not, getting our heart rate up or anything. And this guy, he learned this because I think the first time he learned it was he jumped in cold water. He was like, just jumped in ice water, and he started, breathing really deeply. And he's like, well, why the fuck does your body automatically, by itself, you're not doing anything, when it's in this cold, it wants to take deeper breaths? And he's like, there must be something to this. So he ended up learning that he could control his inner body temperature. They did studies they had experiments where they had him hooked up to machines, and he was under like ice to his neck, and his internal body temperature didn't change, and which is phenomenal. I mean, he can deal with. One time they were filming him, and he went under. They were on ice. He went under the ice to swim around in his boxers or whatever, and he lost the hole. He couldn't find the hole. So time's going by, and people are like, dude, there's no way he's alive right now. You can't hold your breath for that long. So eventually he pops out, and he was under there for so long, his retinas froze, and he was blind for a little bit. And yeah, this guy's fucking crazy. So a lot of times people were thinking like, okay, this guy is a freak of nature. He's different. It's not the breathing. It's not his technique. So he ended up teaching people how to do these techniques and doing the same things he was doing. One thing that's amazing, my brother-in-law, Gina's brother, I don't know if you remember him from back in the day, Anthony, but Ant has asthma, and he plays hockey. And the first time since he was a kid that he ever played hockey without inhaler was when he did this breathing technique, when I convinced him to give it a try, and didn't need an inhaler. His cardio was awesome. And also, remember DeMar, who plays ball with us back in the day? I don't know if you remember DeMar, left-handed shooter, but if you see him, you might know who he is. But he same thing, inhaler, asthma, did this breathing technique, immediately saw a difference. You have to do it multiple times, but the most amazing thing is that your last time you do it, for people who are listening, you inhale as much oxygen as you can, and then you don't really exhale, but you kind of just let it go, and you do that 30 times. The last time, you completely exhale all the oxygen out of your lungs, and without zero oxygen in your lungs, you'll be able to hold your breath for like a minute, and then if you do it a second time, and then, well, after you exhale, then you inhale one last time and hold it for about a minute. And but what this does is it doesn't just change the pH levels. It doesn't just give you all this extra oxygen because of all your lack of breathing, deep breathing during the day. But also when you hold your breath, your body also goes to, survival mode. It goes into where
your last breath, you hold it in for a minute.
Yeah. So for example, if I was doing it if I did it 30 times right now, on my very last exhale, I exhale all the air out of my lungs, and then I hold it for as long as I can. Okay.
See, I didn't do that part.
Yeah, well, that's crucial, because what that does is that when you exhale, first of all, you can time it, and you can see how, because if I say, Renato, hold your breath, see how long you can hold it. First thing you're going to do is inhale, right? You're going to be like, and then you're going to try to see, because it's really hard to hold your breath with no oxygen in your lungs. But what this does is that your very last exhale, you hold your breath for you exhale all the air out of your lungs and you hold it, and then you'll be amazed that you'll be able to hold your breath for like a minute with zero oxygen in your lungs. Okay, some people can't hold their breath for a minute if they had oxygen in their lungs, and never mind no oxygen. But then after you do that for as long as you can, one last time you take a really deep breath, and then you hold it. And then that's it. That's the technique. And then the last time you hold it, you hold it for like a minute or whatever. When you inhale, I don't think you have to go until you can't anymore. Only when you exhale, you go. But if you do it 3 times in a row, like, so if I did it and then I exhaled and I held it, I might be able to go a minute. And then, the second time I do it, I might be able to go a minute and a half, and then 2 minutes. And you'll be amazed how with just no cardio, I'm not on a treadmill, I'm not doing shit, no cardio, I'm just doing this breathing technique, that eventually I'll be able to hold my fucking breath for over 2 minutes. I've done like literally like I think 250, like something crazy, like if I do it like 3-4 times in a row, and I've been doing it for a long time. I at least do it once or twice a week. And I'll do it before basketball. I'll do it when I'm hungover, and I'll do it when it actually helps when you're hungover. I'll tell you, when we went to New Orleans for my buddy bachelor party, and when we came back, we got so drunk and we partied for so much. And you know how it is, like when you're with a bunch of guys, you're out, you're drinking, you're not sleeping, you're on vacation, so you're excited, and you don't sleep in, you're like can't wait to get up and whatever. When we got back, we had people who were on that team, including Bruno, my brother, who was on that team, and we had a playoff game that Sunday. We came back Sunday morning, the game was Sunday night. Nobody on our team that went on that vacation made it to the game except me. And I didn't just make it to the game, I made it to the game and actually played pretty good. And the only reason was because from the last night there onwards, every time I had an opportunity to do this breathing technique, I kept doing it. And I did it when I got home, I did it on a plane, I did it in the bathroom in the hotel in New Orleans. I kept doing it, and I'm like it's gonna help me, and it's the only reason I had any energy to do it. And I'll tell you, there's something to it. And the thing is, now I don't know if it was Harvard, Yale, or Stanford, one of the big universities in the East Coast in the U.S. Studied this guy, and they saw that he even had he could control his immune system. The strength of his immune system actually was, they could actually examine it, and they could see that it was strength. I forget what they did. Like they put a virus in him, and then basically saw how his body reacted to it or something. But there was a way of them actually seeing how his body was reacting. And with this this breathing technique, because two things that are really important with what he does is, one is the breathing technique, and the other thing is cold water. It's like the cold water therapy or whatever. He thinks he'll go and jump in the cold, and I think both are important because of the fact that I think it puts your body in survival mode. So when you're in really, really cold air, or you're in somewhere really, really cold and you're shirtless or whatever, or you're in a t-shirt, and you're doing these deep breaths, your body is also it shocks your body with this cold. The same thing with the holding your breath. I think it's no different than like you almost get in a car accident or something, or you almost cut your hand or whatever, and your body releases adrenaline. Adrenaline's the strongest stimulant known to man, and your body makes it. Your body makes something that's stronger than any caffeine, any nitric oxide, anything. Your body naturally makes it by itself. And when you exhale and you're holding your breath for a long time, it actually releases a little bit of adrenaline, because your body doesn't know that you're not basically trying to survive. It doesn't know that you're not in danger, so it thinks it's in danger. So because it thinks it's in danger, it releases this adrenaline. It also I think has effects on your hormones. He believes that basically it could almost help with almost anything. It could help with your immune system, can help with your regulating your hormones, can help with, it definitely helps with your cardio. I mean, I don't do shit for cardio. I mean, I'll literally go to the gym and just back in the day, I used to do cardio to help my cardio. Now the only reason I do cardio is because I'm old and my joints are tight, and I just need something like just run a little bit just to kind of loosen my body up. But I'll go play basketball. I mean, if you talk to any of the guys I still play basketball with, I can run circles around anybody, and I can run, and even if I don't play for a couple weeks, as long as I'm doing this breathing technique, I'll still show up and still be able to run pretty good and not get tired. And it's all because of this breathing technique. And it makes sense. And now that he has the science and the research to prove that this guy isn't just making this shit up, and this guy isn't just some freak of nature, but anybody can do it. It's pretty amazing, and it's something as simple as just fucking breathing. I know people that I have to convince to do this over and over again. I'm like, dude, give it a try. Just give it a try. Do it once. And it's like, it doesn't cost any money. You don't need any equipment. You don't need anything, and you might be able to improve your cardio, or at least your lung capacity, which is basically improving your cardio. And yet people will be like, no. I remember Eddie Bravo was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's like, dude, this shit's been proven to work and all this stuff. And he's like, I am so fucking lazy that I still don't do it, you know? And it's like, it's true. It's like, you can't, like, I get mad at myself when I'm like, oh, I don't have time. I don't feel like doing it. And I'm like, dude, it's just breathing. It's literally, I don't have to lift anything. I don't have to do nothing. And I can improve my performance, my well-being. I've done it. And even with meditation, when you look at, like, you know, this guy that works for me, Marcio, he talked about how back in the day, I don't know if it was like some professor he had in college that every like week or every day or whatever, he would take some time out of the class to do basically some type of meditation where people would focus on their breathing, only focus on their breathing, take these deep breaths and stuff. And you look at Pilates, you look at yoga, all this, or a lot of like spiritual people who do meditation. What's the number one thing they all have in common? Breathing. They all focus on deep breaths, right? And there's something to that. That the yoga, the Pilates, the spiritual meditation, I think a lot of this stuff makes people feel better. A lot of it, not just because of the physical part of it, but the breathing part of it. And so I think there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of people who don't believe it works, this and that. I think, you know, when you talk to people about this stuff, and people are like, you know what, that's funny you say that, because when I did meditation, it seemed to help out a lot. And I wonder if that's because of the breathing, or if when I did Pilates, or when I did whatever yoga, it seemed to help. And I think that's the common theme, that they all have this deep breathing, which a lot of us lack. You get a woman who a secretary at an office, comes home, cooks for their husband and kids, and then goes to bed. Like, they never have any time to like do anything that gets their heart rate up. Or even a guy who you know, works at a desk, comes home, takes an Uber home, doesn't even have to drive, sits in front of the TV, watches a Celtics game, orders takeout. You know, he never had to run. He never had to do anything. You know, so, and this is such a small portion of human history. You look at like our ancestors, you know, even your grandfather and my grandparents aren't alive, but when they were, my great grandparents, everybody before us, all had to kill things when they were hungry, all had to fix things with their bare hands when they broke, all had to go get things when they wanted something. You know, even if there was a grocery store or a local farm or whatever, you had to walk there to go get it. You know, it wasn't delivered to your house. Like, so our bodies have adapted to move. I always use the example, it's similar to a car, right? I could have a car that's perfectly 100% not broken, everything works on it. I could throw it in a garage, try to start it in 2 years. Once I start driving around, everything's going to go wrong with it. You know, brakes aren't going to work right. The things, why? Things are going to seize up, whatever. Because that car was engineered and designed to move. It was the people who designed that car and engineered it understood that, okay, this thing's is meant to be moved. People are going to move with it. So let's design it to keep things lubricated, to keep things rotating, to keep things the way, you know, moving and to work while it's moving. Our bodies are no different. When you sit down and you do nothing, like you do a lot of traveling. I do a lot of traveling for work too, and that's, you know, why I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm traveling. But when I drive today, for example, I had to drive about an hour and 15 minutes from Dalton in the Berkshires, in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, in Western Mass, and I had to drive an hour and 15 minutes home. I worked all day in the field today. I was more tired after that drive than I was working 8 hours, you know, and because my body shuts down. You're sitting down and it shuts down. And then it's like, holy fuck, like, oh, you're not doing anything? So why am I going to waste resources giving you energy and giving you, you know, whatever? Like, I'm just going to shut down because you're obviously not doing shit, right? And so, but you do that, there's people who do that too often, and then their body's always shut down. That's why when you work out, it sounds weird. Like, if you really think about it, like, we all know that if you work out, you have more energy, right? But think about it. If I expend more energy on a daily basis than I do already, I'm going to have more energy. Like, think of it. It doesn't sound like it makes sense, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely true. You know, the more you work out, the more energy you have. I noticed it right away just by lifting a little bit, just going in, banging out a few sets. You feel more aggressive. You feel more alive. Overall, just feel better throughout the day than if I didn't go there and use my energy then I would have low energy for the day. It's weird how that works out, but yeah, it's definitely true. And definitely about that breathing, it just shows how lazy. You know, you're talking about how no one really wants to do it, or Eddie Bravo was saying how he's so lazy. It's crazy how lazy we've gotten as a generation compared to, you know, just a few generations back, how they had to, you know, how you were mentioning our grandfathers had, you know, something broke, they had to fix it. You know, there was nobody to call. But yeah, we've gotten so lazy, you know. And sometimes I have to catch myself and remind myself too, you know. It's like, oh man, I gotta do something. I gotta work out. Even though like right now I'm on vacation, you know, season's over, and I'm actually going on vacation. I'm leaving to Greece on Monday. But
yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Is that what you're going there for a vacay?
Yeah, just going there vacay, get some warm weather, man. It's so cold here. It's been snowing like every other day.
Somebody wants to say hi.
Hi.
Hey Gina, how are you?
Can't hear him.
She can't hear. Oh, here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Microphone.
Just hanging out here with Rick.
Sounds good. How's everything going out there?
It's good. It's good. It's still cold here, but other than that, not bad.
Awesome. I see you on Facebook sometimes playing basketball.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Little pictures here and there, yeah.
Yeah. Rick told me you guys bought a house.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Just been about a couple weeks ago, and just about all settled in. Just a few more things to do here and there, but.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When are you planning a trip back this way? Anytime soon?
I don't know yet. Maybe we can squeeze it in this summer. I'm not sure yet.
All right. Well, you got to come meet the kids.
Yeah, you guys got like 10 kids already.
We got 2, and that's it. No, not 10.
No.
We're good.
Hey, Portuguese, man. Portuguese have big families.
Yeah, I know.
You're Italian?
Mm-hmm.
Italian have big families too.
Yeah, they do. But that's it. I'm done.
You done?
All right. Well, I just wanted to say hi.
Yeah. It's good to see you.
You too. Take care.
All right.
That was your first appearance on the podcast.
I know. I'm so excited.
That was deep. That was a deep conversation. I can tell this one's going to get downloaded a lot because of that. You got any future plans for marriage, kids? You think you're going to go down that road, or?
Yeah, sure. For sure.
Is that something you think about now? I know, like, when you're traveling and you're not settled down yet, it's probably hard to think that far in the future, you know, but.
Yeah, I mean, we eventually will when we get time. Both are, like, you know, free. We'll knock all those things away, too. But it's hard, you know, when we're both professional athletes, you know, so.
You're going to have little freak of nature kids, man. You guys are going to have, I mean, your kids are going to be, I think the Yao Ming story, I think it was Yao Ming that they talked about how his China, and of course, what else would you expect from China, literally took the tallest male and the tallest female and made them mate together to make this freak athlete. Like, it was basically a genetic experiment. It wasn't like this, like, oh, it just happened to be a really tall guy. No, man, those communist Chinese actually designed Yao Ming, which I wonder is why, like, he has so many injuries, you know, because he would have been, like, one of the greatest centers to ever play if he actually could stay healthy.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that...
that feet problem, you know, the foot problem.
Is that what it was, the foot problem?
The plantar fasciitis, or
yeah,
whatever.
I always fuck it up. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I'm saying a dinosaur name or a medical name. I don't something itis.
Plantar. I'm not sure what the other part is, but he did have that. And I think, you know who else had that? It was Gauskas, I believe. You remember Gauskas?
He had that?
Yeah, he had that in the beginning of his career, but he was able to extend, but he wasn't the same player. But he was able to keep playing, but he had that too in the beginning.
Have you looked into for joint pain and stuff like that, some of your inflammation from sugar and stuff like that? Have you cut out sugars in your diet or anything?
I try to avoid it. I try to avoid sugars as much as possible. I have it in certain things like my tea. I'll put some sugar in, but in general, I try to avoid sugars.
It's funny because I don't even use toothpaste anymore. I use this active charcoal. It's like or activated charcoal, and basically I'm like, why do I want these chemicals in this toothpaste? It makes my teeth sensitive. I'm like, I don't fuck it, and I don't consume a lot of sugar, so I'm not really worried about like not having something strong enough. But I just hated the fact that anytime I did have something that had sugar in it, my teeth were so sensitive from like, you know, my wife Gina would buy freaking whitening toothpaste, which whatever was in it made my teeth super sensitive. And I'm just like, dude, there's this stuff now that it's called activated charcoal. It literally is just like charcoal and a couple other like natural minerals or whatever that's in it. And people are using it for whitening their teeth. And for people who have too sensitive of teeth to use the whitening strips. So I'm like, well, you know what? If it's good enough to whiten your teeth, if it cleans your teeth, then why the fuck wouldn't I use it to try to brush with it? So literally for like a year now, I haven't touched toothpaste. Actually, the first time I touched toothpaste was when I was in when I went recently to the casino for my buddy's bachelor party, and I forgot like toothpaste, so I just used what was in the hotel. But I don't use it, and my teeth are fine. So it makes you wonder, like, the propaganda that goes into selling you fucking toothpaste. It's same thing with soap. You hear stories about people who like stop using the soap that has all these chemicals in it, and they start using like these natural soaps that are made out of like whatever, like animal fat or made of whatever. And it's just like, I feel like we're getting so far from our primitive ancestors who made it this far using a lot of like organic and natural stuff, and now we're trying to use chemicals for everything, which is, you know, we think is better. But I wonder what type of long-term effects it's having on us. I mean, there's this guy that's going to be on my podcast who he was getting really sick. He was an attorney, and I'm trying to think, in Florida, and this was during like the cocaine cowboys. This was when there's a lot of like, he was basically locking up mobsters and gangsters and stuff like that, making a lot of money, good, you know, living a good life, and he was getting super sick, and apparently he was getting super sick at his house, and it was because of all the chemicals that were used to build that house, like paint, you know, asbestos if it's an older house, all these things, and it poisoned him basically. And they finally found out that he was poisoned. They're like, dude, you were poisoned. Was there anybody that you think would be willing to poison you? He's like, I locked up a bunch of mobsters and gangsters. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, there's a lot of people who might want to poison me. But you know, he's like, but it doesn't, you know, but I don't think that was it, you know, and I don't see where they would have the opportunity. So then I forgot how he found out, but they found out that it was his house. And so they put him in like basically the woods, far away from anything, in like a bubble, and he started feeling better. And you hear stories about like people talking about, oh, you know, you start working at a new office, you immediately get sick, and we assume that it's because of new people you're working with and you're spreading germs. But some people now believe that it's not. It's because you're going to a new office and they might use a specific type of paint or something that you're breathing every day that's having an effect on you and causing inflammation in your body or making you sick or whatever. So it's really interesting because you even see people now being more cautious with clothes. Like now you can buy like organic clothes that doesn't use any coloring, you know, because now we never think about like how are they coloring this shirt or your shirt, whatever. Like there's some type of chemical, you know, and so yeah, so it's like we're being exposed to all these chemicals that you might not, you know, even notice or pay attention to, but it could be having some effect on what we're breathing and how we're being affected. You know, I mean, there's something about nature that we're being so driven away from that I think that we have to take. You feel better for a reason when you're barefoot. I just talked about this on my last podcast with I didn't even know there's a name for it, but it's called earthing. And which sounds like some sexual thing, but but it's called earthing, and it's when you walk around on the grass barefooted, and there's something about connecting with the earth. And like we always think about like the earth is one thing and humans are another thing, but they're like we're the same thing. Like me and you will die one day. Our cells, well, they'll put us in a casket probably if you know whatever. But like what should happen, like. Because before the beginning of time, like things died and we decayed into the earth, our cells and everything decayed into the earth. Eventually that earth turned like was grass that this cow ate, and then, you know, somebody ate that cow. And so it's almost like everything's just being recycled, you know, it's like everything's being recycled. We die, we go into the earth, you know, we grow, you know, into some other form, you know, we help the soil be more nutritionally dense because whatever is in us gets into that soil. And so there probably is this connection between nature and us that we're missing out on that does make us feel better. I mean, my parents, I think you remember my parents' house. They had a big backyard, and I loved smoking cigars there and having a whiskey and having a cigar or having a glass of wine, having a cigar and sitting there and hearing the trees, hearing the stream, hearing the animals. And it was this sense of peacefulness that I could never recreate anywhere else where I'm in a city or I'm around people or I'm in this synthetic, you know, building with walls that were built, you know, and by man or whatever. And I think there's something to that, being disconnected from nature. And I think that there's a reason why. I don't know what it's like in Europe, but I've been to a couple whiskey tastings lately, and I've had a lot of guests on that I've talked about cigars and whiskey. I just did a show on the history of bourbon, and because that's like my drink of choice now. And I think a lot of people are getting into it the same reason why I'm getting into it. Years ago, I got into cigars and whiskey and wine, not because I really liked the taste of it all, but because I liked the tradition of sitting down and conversating and talking and sipping and senses that you're constantly neglecting. You're constantly neglecting smells and tastes, and because we're constantly getting online and we're being stimulated by notifications and blah blah blah, and we're not paying attention to what we're smelling and what we're tasting. So what I really liked was this idea that, like, okay, when you drink whiskey on the rocks, or you drink whiskey neat with no ice, or you drink a glass of wine, you have to do it slow. So what it does is, like, you sit and it's about the experience. So I pop open a bottle, I smell it, I smell the cork, I pour it, I smell it, I sip it. I'm looking for notes of this, notes and what am I tasting? Well, you know, what's the aroma? And what it does during this whole process is my phone is aside. I'm paying attention to smells and tastes, and I'm not conscious of it, but I'm subconsciously meditating because I'm forgetting about work. I'm forgetting about wife, kids, you know, bills, whatever. And I'm just focusing on these senses, the same senses that since the beginning of time people have enjoyed. You know, people have always enjoyed food. You know, people have always enjoyed spirits and wine. And I mean, people have talked about, like, the history of spirits going back all the way to Egyptian times, people learning how to make alcohol. And so I think that the reason why I think you see bourbon getting more popular now, cigars getting more popular with younger people. I mean, they talk about how I remember reading this really good article that this guy wrote on cigars and why he enjoys them, and talking about how the reason, because if you smoke cigars, one of the funnest things to do and relaxing is just watching the smoke go in the air, and just the designs it makes. It's just relaxing. You're watching it and you're just watching the smoke go in the air. And this guy talked about how, like, you have to you think about our ancestors for generations and generations. What do they always do? They sat around fires, right? They sat around fires and they talked, and they watched the smoke, they watched the flame, and they think that one of the reasons why people like smoking is a little bit could be because of that, because we're in our DNA, we enjoy watching that flame, we enjoy watching that smoke going up in the air. It's relaxing because, you know, for the longest time we sat around fires and talked. So I think it's interesting. I think the more we get away from those things, and Gina would always be like, oh, how are you such a health nut? You're taking vitamins, you're taking a handful of vitamins every day, you try to go to the gym a couple times a week, you play basketball to stay in shape, and then you smoke cigars and drink whiskey, you know, right after you go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of organic food. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm like, it sounds like it's contradictive, but it's not, because I tell her, I'm like, the meditation, the relaxing I get from having a drink and a smoke, being able to mentally, like, kind of take all this stress out of my brain, and being able to just kind of hit reset, you know, just hit reset and kind of, you know, forget about all that stuff. That, I think, has the pros of that, the benefits of that, I think, are much greater than the negatives I get from drinking alcohol, you know, from, like, drinking, like, my one glass of wine, or, you know, having my one whiskey. I think that that's something people take for granted. I think that if I didn't drink and smoke, and every weekend went by and all I did was keep busy and never slow down at all, I think I'd look run down eventually. I would look run down. I'd be run down. I'd physically, you know, so it gives you this reason to sit down, relax, and reset. And you know, and I'm sure I should probably be asking you a question instead of just ranting on for an hour.
No, it's true. As long as you do it in moderation, and you enjoy it, and it relaxes you, and you know, gives you a little reset, and gives you just a little break from whatever you're doing, whatever you got going on. I think it's good for you. You know, as long as you control it, you handle it, you take it in moderation, then why not? What's your view on marijuana?
I'm a big fan of it. I don't smoke it. I don't care to smoke it. I've done edibles not too long ago because I honestly, it was just one of those things where I'm like, when I was young and I smoked weed with friends, I did it because I just wanted to fit in. But now I wonder if I could do it for the sake of trying to self-reflect, trying to like tap into some filters. You know, like we always have these filters. We have these filters where it's like, I convince myself I'm a better sibling than I really am. I convince myself I'm a better husband, a better father. I'm all, you know, all these things. It's always like, you know, that's not my fault. That's because you did that. You know, it's not, you know, and I think that even if you try to do your best to get rid of those filters, there's still, you know, a part of you probably still does a little bit of it, a little of justifying your actions, a little bit of, you know, whatever. And I think that as adults, like if people want to smoke weed or do DMT or do edibles, and if they can do it in an environment where it can help them kind of re-examine their lives and stuff like that, it's good. But the big thing about marijuana is the fact that, and coming from a parent's perspective, now having kids, when I hear stories about parents who have kids who have seizures or medical issues, and they can't get a natural plant, okay? I can go buy a handle of vodka that could kill me. I could drink, you know, we used to drink 151. It almost did kill me a few times, you know? And so I can go buy this shit that could kill me, okay? I could buy 2 handles of 151, you know, if it even comes in handles, I don't know. But it probably shouldn't. If it does, it should be illegal to buy a handle of 151. But if I could go buy a 151 and give myself alcohol poisoning, not a big deal. But yet, a plant that in the history of it has never killed anybody has medical benefits to it, okay? It absolutely helps with inflammation. It helps with depression. It helps with so many different things. I mean, some people, hemp oil has helped people with cancer. And there's a good documentary called Running from the Cure with Rick Simpson, who basically documents how he cured himself of cancer with hemp oil. And in the documentary teaches you how to make it because he's trying to help people. And he goes to cancer conferences all over the world trying to get this out there. Of course, you can't patent hemp, you know, anything that's natural. And because you can't patent it.
Buy hemp oil here.
Yeah, you can buy it now too. Well, hemp is legal in the States. It's just but you can't. This is how ridiculous the laws are. So you can buy hemp in the U.S., but you can't grow it. So all of it comes from Canada. I mean, it might have been changed now, but I know only last year or the year before I bought hemp protein bars, and it actually came from Canada. They can't grow it here, so it's all Canadian hemp, which is stupid.
Okay, but you can buy the hemp oils at your local grocery store, right?
I don't know if you can. To be honest,
they have hemp oil at grocery stores here.
Really, and it's like known that to be helpful.
No, I don't see like people buying it. I've bought it and I've tried it because I like to take some oils, but I was just wondering, like, they must have it there if they have it here. Hemp oils. Well, you know, the regular cold pressed little.
You know what? I think you could probably order it. I'm not sure it's as common as grocery stores yet. At least I haven't looked. No, I
think
you
buy it at the grocery store.
I think that if it was at a grocery store, I probably would have seen it. So I don't think that there is. I know you can buy it. Like there's one called Charlotte's Web, which is a good hemp oil, and like people talk about it, you know, helping with inflammation and stuff like that. But the crazy thing, it's still a Schedule 2 drug or Schedule 1, yeah. But cocaine. Schedule 1 means that there's zero medical benefit to it. Schedule 2 means that there's a little bit of a medical benefit to the drug. I might get those. I might have them flip-flop. But either way, the one that's worse, that the government thinks is more worse. I sound like a fucking idiot. But the one that is worse is the one that marijuana is under. They're under that description. And cocaine and heroin is under the category of a substance that can have some medical benefit. So that shows you how ridiculous these laws are. Where marijuana, which has proven and pretty much publicly acknowledged medical benefits, like it's still, you'll get more time for marijuana than you will whatever. Now, a lot of these states, it's almost completely, like in Massachusetts, for example, it's basically legal. Like the cop can't get you in trouble for it. You can't get locked up for it. You can't. But federally, it's still illegal. So this is how stupid the laws are. You know. So in California, they were having issues where California, you know, weed stores, marijuana stores, were having issues putting their money that they're making at, you know, from all the sales in a bank, because those banks are federally insured and all this stuff. And because it's not federally legal, basically those banks would be doing something illegal, taking that money. So you'd have all these people that were looking for places to put their money from their business. They're just running a business, a store like any 7-Eleven or any convenience store, and but they couldn't just, like any business owner, put the money they make in a bank. So they would leave it there, which means that you're more susceptible to get robbed. And the other thing too is that what the feds would do is every once in a while they would raid one of these places, take all their fucking money, because technically, federally, even though in the state it's legal in California, but federally, so over the whole U.S., so the state has laws, and then the U.S. has laws. The U.S. laws trump the state laws. So because the Fed laws it's still illegal. They can take all that money because it's considered illegal. You made money off something illegal, so it's illegal money. It's black market money, and take all that money, and they would just leave these businesses hanging. They would just raid them, take all their money, and they wouldn't even press charges. They would just take the money and then basically put them out of business. And so there was a huge issue with California marijuana stores finding a place that put their money, their business money, and it's one of the many ridiculous laws. We'll talk about re-examining ourselves. One thing we also need to re-examine is why the fuck do we have these ridiculous laws? But that's how strong marijuana propaganda is. That years and years of knowing that nobody has ever died from marijuana, but yet you could go buy alcohol and drink yourself, and domestics happen because of alcohol, car accidents, alcohol poisoning, all these bad things happen because of alcohol. And but yet, I remember getting in an argument with my brother just a couple years ago about if you smoked or drank every day, which one would be worse for you? And I said, well, I'm a drinker. I don't smoke, but I still think drinking would be worse for you. Marijuana doesn't have any, you're breathing in smoke. It has to be bad for your lungs. But I'm like, no, it's not that simple. The type of smoke that you're getting from marijuana actually doesn't give you lung cancer the way cigarettes does. And a lot of people believe that cigarettes gives you lung cancer not because of even the smoke of the tobacco, but because of the smoke that comes from all the shit they add in it. That's why there's a lot of people. I had Delicia, the cigar vixen. She's a cigar reviewer and writer, and she travels all over the world, to go into all the big farms, the tobacco farms like Drew Estates and Romeo and Juliet and all these big farms, and talks to the owners and stuff. And she's always around cigar smokers. She's in Cigar and Spirit magazine, and she's done cigar documentaries, and she literally smokes every day, and she swears, and I don't know if I'm completely on board with her, but she swears that you will not get cancer from smoking cigars. Why? Because it's a plant, and it's dried, and you roll it, and there's nothing added to it. It literally is just a plant that's rolled. And because it's a plant that's rolled and there's no additives, that's why you need a humidor. Because if you don't put it in a humidor, so it keeps it at 72 humidity, between 60 and 70 or 80 or whatever humidity, it needs to survive in that type of climate, because if not, the tobacco will actually crack, and then eventually the cigar will fall apart. Or if it's too humid, then the tobacco will soak in the moisture, and then you won't be able to light it because it'll be too wet. But my point is that why do cigars need to be in a humidor to keep it the right humidity, but cigarettes I could throw in my car, a pack of them, and smoke them whenever the fuck I feel like it, and the tobacco's always good? Because cigarettes is the McDonald's of tobacco. And cigarettes, just like it might not be the beef patty that's killing you at McDonald's, it might be the quality of the beef patty and all that shit that they put in it. It's not beef that's bad for you, it's that quality of beef. Some people believe cigars are the same thing. There was this one article I shared on Facebook not too long ago, and in this article they talked about how literally there's been almost zero studies on if cigar actually causes, there's been no real good research on people dying strictly of just smoking cigars. If smoking cigars are actually killing people at a higher rate. So if you're more likely to get any disease or anything because of smoking cigars. And this guy took all these other studies, and he's like, okay, well, we don't have a study that looks at this, but we have all these other studies, and we'll put them together, and we'll come up with a conclusion. And they saw that people who smoked one cigar a day statistically didn't have a better chance of getting any medical issue. So in other words, if I smoked a cigar a day, I wasn't more likely to get cancer. I wasn't more likely to get basically anything. And I think it kind of makes sense, because when you look at it, cigarettes, the cigarette companies are I mean, they're known for adding a bunch of shit to it. You know, people hear rumors about rat poison, about fiberglass, all that stuff. And you figure if you're smoking that shit, it cannot be good for you. Like, you're smoking fiberglass. Like, that's what. So it might not actually be the tobacco that's bad for you. And you look at Indian smoked, you know, like smoking tobacco has been around forever. So smoking tobacco alone, I'm not saying it's safe or healthy or whatever, but what I'm saying is that it probably isn't nearly as bad for you as smoking cigarettes. And I see it with my cardio. I see it with cigars really hasn't messed me up at all. And I smoke them almost at least. Yeah.
Cigars are like, you know, it takes a long time to smoke a damn cigar. Do you smoke it all in one, or do you put it out and smoke it a little bit later? Or
well, they come in sizes. So like, you know, like what I do sometimes is when I'm grilling outside, like I'll buy like a tin can of like these smaller, they call them like cigarellas. You know, it's like a cigar, a shape of, yeah. And what I'll do is I'll buy those and I'll smoke one when I'm outside grilling real quick. But yeah, I mean, if I have a really long one, and I'll take my time, but that's kind of the reason why I like it, because if I have a really long one, I know I have to take an hour out of my day to sit back, or if I'm with some buddies and we're like, listen, we're not going to any other bar because I'm lighting a cigar and we're sitting right here and we're going to talk,
yeah,
you know?
I was like, it takes at least, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know, I mean, I'm not a cigar smoker, but I have smoked a couple cigars, you know. You know, they take quite a long time to smoke.
Yeah, they definitely do, and they can. But you can get like I said, you can get smaller ones. You know, there's like the Churchill and all this stuff. You can get longer ones, shorter ones, different gauges, and but you know, to me, it makes me feel good knowing that literally it's these families that have been growing. You know, they look like farms. I mean, you go to a tobacco farm, it looks like any other farm. It just plants growing and whatever. And they take these plants, they dry them, and then somebody has the talent to roll them up with their bare hands. It's rolled up, and it's all rolled by hand. There's no machines involved. There's no chemicals added. It's just hand rolled cigars. You're smoking something that a family for generations and generations have been growing and are passionate about, and put their love into this product. And it's not, you don't see. It's kind of like bourbon. You don't see a lot of new companies. You see a lot of old families that have been around forever and have been doing it a generation. You know, I teach my kids how to run the farm and how to grow good tobacco, and then they teach their kids, and everybody grows up on the farm, and everybody's a part of this whole process. And it's like wine. You have to love it to do it, because it takes a lot of work and effort, and there's not always a lot of money in it. So to get involved in it, you know, you have to be passionate about it. And you know, same thing with wine, same thing. Like, yeah, does alcohol have some negative effects? Yes. But I think that you know, wine's one of those things where it's probably better for you than drinking a Bud Light, which is fucking, you know, who knows what's in it. You know, no, people who are drinking Bud Lights are just trying to get a buzz. They're not doing it for the taste or whatever. So you look at like European wines, like, and that's the other thing too. Like in America, you can add things to wines to help with consistency of color. Like, so if I make wine this year, and all the years prior to this year, we have this beautiful, you know, maroon color that people love. But then this year, the grapes weren't very good. So now I'll add something to it to try to give it the same color, you know. In America, there's like 50 or 80, I don't know what number it is, the additives you can add to wines. Well, all that stuff you're adding to it will end up increasing the chance of you getting a hangover, you know. But in Europe, they still believe in not adding shit to it. So you'll get wines from Italy that aren't organic. Like, they don't say organic when they sell them in Europe, but when they bring them to America, because they know they can sell it a little bit more expensive, and people are looking for organic, they'll put the organic label on it. But that's because in Europe, most things are pretty close to being organic because they don't add things to it, you know. So you know, I think that, like anything, you know, the closer, like food, the closer you can get to the natural form of it. You know, if I can get a grass-fed piece of beef, you know, or eggs right from the chicken, or I can pick fruit or whatever, it's probably going to be better for me than when a company gets it, processes it, or adds anything to it, and then I eat it, you know, because your body also has to break down not just the food, but the chemicals that are in it. So it's interesting, you know. In Estonia, is drinking big, or you guys do a lot of drinking, or do you do personally? Do you do?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, all the young guys. I mean, it's freezing here. You know, it's like it was I think it was 9 degrees Celsius today, midday.
Damn.
That's I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty, it's pretty cold.
That's pretty cold, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. So that's Celsius. So what the hell is that in Fahrenheit?
9 degrees Celsius is, it's, well, zero degrees Celsius is 32 Fahrenheit.
Okay, so you're talking about in the 40s.
40s, yeah, something. So it's cold, especially for being May. It's pretty cold. And I pull up to the supermarket here, and there's a kid in a shorts and tank top, and he's got a bottle of I think he had Captain Morgan or something. He's just walking out with some shorts and a little tank top on. I'm like, damn, this guy must be already been drinking. But yeah, young kids here, they love it, man. They love drinking. It's huge here in Estonia.
Do you think they do it more of a social thing, or is it more about
One sec.
Yeah,
What's
no
up?
problem.
Okay. I don't think so. All right. Good night.
Yeah, it's late there. I won't hold you up too much longer, but well, yeah, I'll definitely have you on again. I know it's probably like fucking 1 in the morning, or I don't know what time it is there, but it's
like 1:30.
1:30. So what's your future plans? Do you know what you're doing after the season, or what's gonna? Do you have any? Or are you just gonna enjoy the off season and not think too much about it?
Enjoy the off season, play in the Grand Prix tournaments, and enjoy my time off.
Yeah.
See what happens. I'll probably know by July what I'm going to do, where I'll be playing again. So
now that you got a house and you're settled in Estonia, is leaving the country off limits, or is that still a possibility?
I don't think it's off limits. You never know what the future might bring, but for now, we're here, we're settled. She also plays here and she works here as well. So for the immediate future, we're definitely going to be here, but I can't rule out living somewhere else.
Yeah, you got to go where the opportunities are, right?
Yeah. You never know what can happen. So.
Is that one of the crappy parts of the gig? Is that is this the first time in a long time you've had a place that felt like home, that you could call home?
Yeah, I guess if you put it that way, yeah, because you're always kind of moving around, and especially earlier in my career when I was playing in different countries, and you live in here for a year, and then you live here for, or not a year, but 10 months, whatever, and then you get used to it, and then you bounce and you jump around, and then you go back home, or you go back to Estonia, and then you go back to America, and always kind of bouncing around. You don't really have a home anywhere, but yeah, now recently, because I've been here for the last 5 years or so now, we had a different place, a smaller place, and now we got this one. And now it's definitely feel more settled in.
Yeah.
More.
Do you like traveling? Are you one of those people who like traveling, or do you like also having the benefit of sleeping in the same bed every night and like I said, having a place that feels like home?
It depends. It depends on if you're traveling for a game. If it's really far and you're either flying or say you're taking a ship. Say we have a game in Sweden, we're going to take a big ship over there. Then it's not bad. It's all right. But if you have a game in Lithuania, it's a 9-hour bus ride. It sucks. You get tired of those.
Yeah.
So the further away, it's okay because you're going to be staying in a big hotel. It's not that bad, but the ones that are the end of Latvia or in Lithuania, where it's going to be at least 5-6 hour bus ride, then it's like, all right, here we go. You're getting home, and then you come back late or whatnot. So those are the ones that you kind of get tired of. But
how often do you speak English now that you're you've been spending the last 9 years in Europe? I mean, do you feel like your English? Because your English it sounds like it hasn't changed at all. And I wonder if you feel like you struggle with it a little bit more, or do you think about it? Do you have to think about it?
I forget words and I forget certain things. Sometimes my girlfriend will ask me what does this mean? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't remember the exact definition for that. But I can kind of give it to you in a sentence, but I can't tell you what it means. Or she'll ask me something, I'm like, I don't remember. So I feel like, yeah, it's kind of getting worse a little bit, slightly, but I still use it. It's still my main language. I speak it with her. I speak it with most of my friends. But
Oh, really?
when I'm around certain people that don't really speak English, then I obviously got to use my Estonian. So,
Dude, how good is your Estonian being there for,
it's better than what it was before, but it's still not great.
yeah, yeah.
I can get by with it. It's not
Well,
great.
that's the thing. When you came to America, a lot like myself, like I end up, well, you use it even less than me. At least I had some other Portuguese family and friends here, but you, I mean, basically speaking to your sister, well, your sister, I'm sure you spoke in English, and then you probably spoke to your mother. I know you spoke to your mother in Estonian and some family, but really outside of that, you probably didn't speak it that much. So I'm sure growing up, little by little, it got worse or got more slang. Like with me, it got very slangish. Like you start mixing American words or English words and Portuguese words, and like you go back to Portugal, and people are like, dude, that's not a fucking word, man. That's some hybrid word of two words, you know?
That's Brazilian, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting, but it's fun and it's good to know multiple languages because you connect with people differently. Like if me and you were out eating somewhere and our waiter was Estonian, and you spoke to him in Estonian, he would be fucking super excited and he'd open up to you, like you have something in common and you connect. So I think it is nice to know multiple languages instead of being like, learn English, it's all about America and everybody should learn English. I think that it's important you go to Europe, and I remember me and you talking about this once, how like you meet people in Europe and everybody speaks your language, their language, and like another language. Everybody speaks multiple languages.
It's crazy here. Like everybody can speak like at least two languages besides their own. It's pretty amazing how that is here. Like back in the day, when I was in high school, I took Spanish, man. I didn't learn anything. Here, it's like if you take Spanish, like you have to learn it, or you're not going to pass.
Yeah.
You won't graduate.
Well, that's a good
it's
point. Like if you
different.
learn a language in America, it just means you passed the class. It doesn't mean you can actually hold a conversation in that language. Where in Europe, if you took that class in school, you actually can hold a conversation in that language.
Like my girlfriend, she speaks perfect English. Like her English is just as good as mine.
Really?
Yeah, she's absolutely fluent in English. Like sometimes I'll be like, "How do you spell, so and so?" And she'll be like, "It's this, you idiot." And I'm like, "Oh." Like she's really really good in English.
That's
Like
hilarious.
you wouldn't, like if she spoke to you in English, you wouldn't know she was Estonian. You'd probably think she was American.
Now, did she pick up on it just from living there, or did she? I mean, she's been to the States before, hasn't she?
She has once, but she just she had to learn it in school, and then obviously being a basketball player, she had to use it a lot. She's played in Spain, and she's traveled a lot with basketball. So she has to use it, and obviously all the TV and movies here, everyone watches. They're all in English, so
Yeah.
you learn it, you pick it up that way faster too.
I always say our biggest exports are like Britney Spears and Kardashians, entertainment, and that's about it.
Music too, yeah.
Yeah, we don't export anything besides entertainment and wars. That's about it. That's the only thing that we're known for. We don't make shit anymore. So even our cars are all made, Mexico and shit like that. Detroit's a dying city, but it's it's interesting how like even when you're empire like America, like the culture. The whole world seems to revolve around us, and unfortunately, I think a lot of Americans have that feeling like, oh, I don't have to learn anything about that culture because the world revolves around us, not them. So they'll just learn about my culture. Like when people in America get mad that people come to the States and not pick up the language, immediately or don't speak it, well. And it's just like, listen, dude, like there's nothing wrong with holding on to your culture and holding on to your accents and stuff like that. There's talking about how like in America a lot of people are losing accents and eventually like there isn't going to be a Worcester and Boston accent and a Southern accent because like you said, we're all listening to and hearing the same people. We're all listening to the same music.
I'm at 1% right now.
Okay, well I won't hold you. Hey, well thanks for taking the time. I know it's late. Thanks for taking the time for being with me. Next time, right now we've been working shorter days on Friday, or if not at all. I've been working shorter days on Friday or not at all because we've been working longer days Monday through Thursday. So I'll have to, next time we'll schedule something, we'll have to schedule something earlier in the day. And today I happen to work.
I do it for Saturday. We'll try to work out a Saturday where we could do it where.
Yeah, I could do it in Saturday morning or early afternoon where it's a reasonable time for you. and we'll hook up again. How long are you gonna be in Greece, for a couple weeks or a couple days?
No, just 5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so we'll hook up again and you know, and give it a little bit of time, and then we'll talk about what you got planned for the upcoming season, and we'll talk more life, and talk about, I'm sure you probably be wondering what some of our friends are doing, and we'll talk about some of that shit, and you know, I don't think we'll ever. I don't think we ever struggle to find something to talk about, so we'll definitely, and what's going on in current events, because there's always fucking shit going on too.
Definitely.
But thanks again, Renato. I really appreciate the time. Tell the wifey sorry for keeping you up so late. I'm sure she probably is cold with no cuddling buddy in bed right now. and we'll keep in touch.
Okay, for sure. Take care, Rick.
Thanks, Renato. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.